She was a quiet woman from Montgomery, Alabama. She didn't make headlines, she didn't seek fame, she was simply tired of being treated like a second-class citizen, tired of a world that told her where she could sit and where she could not. Rosa Parks was born in 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama. She grew up learning about the harsh realities of segregation. She saw her parents and her community face injustice every single day. She learned courage not from grand speeches but from small acts of dignity and respect. She learned that standing up sometimes meant simply refusing to move. In December of 1955, Rosa was coming home from work. She boarded a bus in Montgomery. She paid her fare and took a seat in the section reserved for black passengers. The bus started to fill and the driver asked her and a few others to give up their seats for white passengers. Rosa Parks said no. She did not raise her voice, she did not shout, she simply sat there quietly, calmly, firmly. Her refusal was not a reckless act, it was a deliberate stand against a system that had oppressed her people for decades. She knew there would be consequences, she knew she could be arrested, but she also knew that sometimes courage is silent and powerful. The police came and arrested her for breaking the law. She was taken from that bus and put in jail, yet her act ignited a movement. Her courage inspired the African American community in Montgomery to organize a boycott of the city buses. The boycott lasted for over a year. People walked miles to work to show that they would no longer accept unjust laws, they would no longer accept discrimination. Rosa Parks had not marched on the streets, she had not shouted slogans, yet her single act of resistance became a spark that ignited the flames of the civil rights movement. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. recognized the power of her action. Her quiet courage showed that ordinary people could make extraordinary change. The boycott eventually led to the Supreme Court ruling that segregation on buses was unconstitutional. Rosa Parks became known as the mother of the civil rights movement, but she remained humble. She continued to work for social justice quietly. She continued to inspire generations through her example that one person's courage can move a nation. Rosa Parks taught the world that standing up does not always mean raising your voice, sometimes it means sitting down and saying no. She showed that dignity and courage can be quiet and still shake the foundations of injustice. She proved that you don't have to be loud to be heard, you don't have to hold power to change history, you just have to hold your ground when it matters most. Her story reminds us that bravery comes in many forms. It comes in silent defiance, in simple acts of integrity, in moments when you choose what is right over what is easy. Rosa Parks' life was not about fame, it was about making the world fairer, one small courageous step at a time. She changed America not with anger but with quiet strength. She changed history not with violence but with steadfast courage. She changed the world by simply refusing to move, and in that moment she taught generations that real change begins with a single act of bravery. She grew up in a world where rules were made to keep people like her in their place. She learned early that injustice was part of everyday life, but she also learned the power of quiet courage. She understood that courage was not always loud, it could be small and steady like a flame that never goes out. Long before she refused to give up her seat, Rosa Parks was already part of a movement in her community. She attended meetings, she worked with local organizations, and she helped young people understand their rights. She knew that change was built slowly with patience, determination, and a refusal to accept wrongs. When the bus incident happened, it was not just one day, it was the result of years of living under unfair laws. It was the result of seeing families torn apart. It was the result of believing that dignity mattered even when the world tried to take it away. The simple act of sitting down and saying no sent shockwaves through Montgomery. It made people realize that ordinary citizens could challenge injustice in ways that were both peaceful and powerful. It inspired not just a boycott but a deeper sense of pride and courage in the African American community. It reminded them that they were not powerless, that their voices mattered even when the law tried to silence them. Her quiet rebellion also showed the world that true leadership can come from unexpected places. Rosa Parks did not seek attention, she did not write speeches for newspapers, she simply made the choice to stand for what was right by sitting down. Her actions reminded everyone that heroism is not always loud, sometimes it is calm and determined, it is consistent, it is grounded in principle, and it is brave in ways that the world cannot ignore. Even after the Supreme Court ruled segregation on buses unconstitutional, Rosa Parks continued her work. She became a symbol not just of defiance but of hope. She traveled across the country speaking to people, encouraging them to stand up against injustice in their own lives. She worked tirelessly for education, civil rights, and social justice. She proved that courage is a lifelong commitment, that one act of bravery can lead to many others, and that ordinary people can make extraordinary change. Rosa Parks' story teaches us that change does not always come from shouting, it often comes from quiet persistence, from refusing to accept wrong, from taking one small step when it matters most. It comes from believing that what is right is worth standing for, even if standing means sitting down. She showed the world that the most powerful acts are sometimes the simplest acts of courage, and that history can be changed by those who are willing to quietly, but firmly hold their ground.